I'm known as the quintessential good girl. For 5 years, no matter how Liang Yanqing fooled around outside, I obediently endured it. Until that day, a pair of stockings and underwear that didn't belong to me were left behind in the hotel suite. He showed no guilt at being caught. He smiled lazily and said, "Be good, help me check out." His friends started betting on how long I would put up with it this time. Liang Yanqing propped his chin up, indifferent. She's so obedient. She'll simmer down in a couple of days, just like before, looking at me with pitiful eyes, begging me not to leave. Liang Yanqing didn't know that girls like me, once we reach marriageable age, always obey our parents. So when he was feeling smug, I gathered my courage and asked the handsome guy I was set up on a blind date with. The child would take my surname. Can you accept that? I pressed the doorbell of the room number Liang Yanqing sent me for a long time, but no one answered. I pulled my hand back, leaned against the wall, and supported my bag from underneath. It contained a 14-inch laptop. The strap dug into my shoulder, causing a bit of pain. After a while, the door next to me finally opened. Liang Yanqing was only wrapped in a towel around his waist, his upper body bare. Water droplets still trickled down his defined chest. The tall man leaned against the doorframe with one hand, his brows slightly furrowed. "Why didn't you just come tomorrow?" Holding my bag with both hands, I looked up and whispered apologetically, Sorry. There was a sudden bug in the project, so I worked late." Liang Yanqing pulled his hand away and walked inside, saying, "How much can you even earn from that crap job of yours? You might as well quit as soon as possible." Just before the hotel door clicked shut, I quickly sidestepped and followed him in. It was only after entering that I noticed something off. I froze on the spot. Liang Yanqing's suite was large. There was a long distance from the entrance to the room. Turning the corner, I could see a pair of stockings torn beyond recognition on the living room sofa, along with scattered lingerie and a thong made of just a few thin straps. I knew Liang Yanqing liked to have fun, and I also knew that over the years I'd been by his side, he never stopped seeing other women. But I always thought if I just didn't see it, it would be fine. I always deliberately avoided scenes of Liang Yanqing being intimate with others. As long as I didn't see it, I could keep deceiving myself. Like a fish, I would always give myself 7 seconds to numb myself. I looked at Liang Yanqing. He was already leaning against the bar, watching me, a glass of wine in his hand. From the bathroom not far away, the faint sound of water could still be heard. There was no panic or guilt in his eyes as he looked at me. "You're too late," he shrugged, his voice calm. I clutched my bag tightly, afraid that if I loosened my grip, the computer would fall to the ground. It cost over 10,000 yuan, almost half a month's salary for me. I was about to speak when the bathroom door suddenly opened. A long-legged, seductive woman wrapped in a loose bathrobe stepped out. When she saw me, her reaction was indifferent, as if she wasn't surprised at all that a third person was here. President Liang, her voice sticky and sweet, she pressed against Liang Yanqing, revealing ample cleavage. "That endorsement for me." Liang Yanqing subtly moved aside, taking a sip of his wine. "See, Chenming. You can go now," the woman said sweetly. "Thank you, President Liang." By the time she came out, she was fully armed. I stared at her figure, finally remembering she was Zhao Tian, the latest rising starlet. As she reached the door, I slightly turned aside. Perhaps to flatter Liang Yanqing, she suddenly stopped and took a look at me, then turned back with a smile. "Mr. Liang has such good taste. The assistant you hired is top-tier pure and seductive style. If she were in the entertainment industry, she'd be very sought after." Liang Yanqing didn't even lift his head, nor did he refute. He just said impatiently, "Get lost." She grabbed her bag, swayed her hips, and walked out happily. Liang Yanqing changed his clothes, walked over, and familiarly took the bag from my hand. As he had done many times before, his expression was natural, as if nothing had happened. He put an arm around my waist. "Hungry? What do you want to eat tonight? I'll take you to eat later." Seeing me still standing there, he raised an eyebrow. Thinking of something, he lazily laughed, his fingers tracing circles on my waist. "Not happy? Want something?" I had someone open another room next door. It had always been like this. I knew. I always knew. I knew he was a flirt, knew he was a playboy, but I still stepped into it without hesitation. I was the one who was despicable, the one who handed him the knife, so I never blamed anyone, including Liang Yanqing. I always knew. That one day we would completely go our separate ways, but I always hoped for a little longer, a little longer. And now, when this day came, surprisingly, I didn't feel an excruciating pain, only relief. Perhaps this heart had long been numbed by stabs. I pulled Liang Yanqing's hand away, lowered my eyes, and took back my bag. Liang Yanqing, I want to break up with you. My voice was low, yet firm, carrying an unprecedented courage. After I spoke, the room fell silent for a long time. I couldn't help but look up at Liang Yanqing. He was studying me, as if trying to discern whether I was serious. Suddenly, he let out a soft laugh. Break up? He looked at me, bent down, and in his eyes, two tiny reflections of me shimmered. Ran, he clicked his tongue, as if recalling something. How old were you when we first met? 19 or 20? He shook his head. Can't remember. Anyway, back then, aside from being obedient, you weren't particularly remarkable, thick bangs and a pair of black-rimmed glasses covering half your face. I asked if you wanted to try it. He straightened up and adjusted his cuffs. You nodded with a red face, without any hesitation. I also said that I'm a real player. I don't force anyone to stay with me, and no one can force me to love only one person. He looked at me with some pity and sighed. What did you say back then? You said you were willing. Now you're threatening me with a breakup. He wiped away my tears, somewhat puzzled. Don't you think it's unfair to me? All right, stop crying. You've adapted well over the years. This time was my slip-up. Next time, I won't let you run into things like this. He grabbed my shoulders and turned me around, his chin resting on my shoulder. In front of us was a huge floor-length mirror. It reflected his unabashed arrogance and my flood of tears. Do you know how old that woman just now was? 20. If I recall correctly, you're 26 this year, right? Instead of using such childish tricks like breaking up to keep me, you'd be better off investing more in beauty and fitness. After all, we've been the most compatible over these years. Everyone else is just a passing visitor. There's no need for you to take it to heart. He was always malicious, but it was hidden beneath a beautiful facade, so even when he said things like this, it sounded like a heartfelt confession. I had no strength left to struggle or argue. I was like a marionette, with Liang Yanqing pulling the strings. I stirred slightly, but still said firmly, Liang Yanqing, let's break up. He just smiled. He said indifferently, Fine, I understand. You go ahead and break up with me. He glanced at his watch. He picked up his suit jacket and gave me an overwhelming kiss. Be good. Remember to check out of the room. I have a meeting. I'll have someone send the new season's shoes and bags to your place. As for the rest, I'll make it up to you tonight when I get back. Maybe the word breakup had appeared too many times between us, so it had lost any shred of deterrent power. In the beginning, it was Liang Yanqing who often brought up breaking up. He knew earlier than I did the threatening power of those two words. Ran, if you can't take it, we can break up. You know I can't stand to see you upset. I'm easy to appease. So he would always laugh and casually coax me, then lightly brush it aside. But this time, I told myself, don't be soft-hearted, don't back down. Besides, breaking up doesn't require the other person's consent. The wounds caused by emotions are the cleanest and most decisive. After returning from the hotel, I developed a fever. In a day's sleep, I saw the 19-year-old that Liang Yanqing had forgotten. Liang Yanqing had a handsome face. Even without power or influence, he could snap his fingers and have a crowd of people willing to date him. But ironically, he also had an excellent family background. He favored bold, gorgeous women from stars to supermodels, without exception. No one thought he would ever take notice of a good girl like me, who had nothing but obedience and conformity. But just my luck. He had tasted all the delicacies, and when life grew cloying, he happened to catch a glimpse of me. As dusk fell on a secluded campus path, I saw him for the first time, his arm wrapped around a girl named Zheng Xijia. She was so beautiful that even though the tacky tradition of voting for a school belle had long vanished, everyone still called her that by default. He was generous. Though only his name was widely known, the news spread across the entire school. Every time Zheng Xijia went out with him, she would receive gifts worth hundreds of thousands. When she wanted to experience the dream of stardom, with a mere flick of his hand, Zheng Xijia, who had no major works, instantly got magazine shoots and endorsements. When Zheng Xijia clung to him acting spoiled, I looked up and saw Liang Yanqing's indifferent expression, the cigarette between his fingers flickering. Maybe he was annoyed. He tilted his chin toward me to divert her attention. "Who's that?" Zheng Xijia immediately became alert and reached out to block his view. "She's a good girl. Not our kind." I lowered my head and hurried past. Liang Yanqing shrugged with a carefree smile, saying nothing. Since childhood, I've always been the most worry-free good girl in everyone's eyes. My mother raised me single-handedly, her love wrapped in layer after layer of rules. My curfew was always 9 o'clock, hair couldn't go past my shoulders, bangs had to be cut above my eyebrows. In her airtight protection, I grew into the most obedient version of myself. Old-fashioned, docile, abiding by all the established social norms. I'd even drag myself out of bed when sick to return library books, terrified of being overdue. I thought my life would stay proper and orderly forever, until Liang Yanqing reached out his hand to me. That hand was no less than the forbidden fruit Eve offered to Adam: temptation, downfall, a fog of confusion. Later, Zheng Xijia found out. She was surprised and said the same thing again, but this time to a different person. She said, "Liang Yanqing and us are not the same kind of people." "Don't get involved," I said. "I won't." But later, those unrequited loves were like thin iron wires, winding around the bones. I thought that with a scumbag like Liang Yanqing, as long as I tried and suffered, I could move on without any attachment and step onto the right path. But a scumbag who isn't scummy enough, who leaves a bit of sincerity, is the most lethal. I don't know if he was born with the gift of coaxing people, or if he treated me specially. He gave me cars and houses. Countless luxury gifts were the norm. I said that I was strictly raised at home, so there were many things I had never experienced, never watched a sunrise or chased a sunset. At 4 in the morning, he picked me up from bed and drove over an hour to stand on a mountaintop and wait for the sunrise. I was on a business trip and casually mentioned that I had left my sleeping plushie at home and couldn't sleep at night. At that time, he was abroad on the phone, biting a cigarette and laughing. Oh, what can we do about that? Within just 2 hours, his private plane circled and landed on the hotel rooftop. The crew even tied a beautiful bow around the old plush toy, wishing me good night and sweet dreams. I knew this wasn't love. After all, someone like Liang Yanqing would never understand how to love another person. So I indulged myself, and I forgave him. But still, I would search for traces in every little detail, trying to prove something. That for a fleeting second, his heartbeat had been in sync with my love. A few days ago, at the end of a particularly intense night, I felt a scorching heat as I drifted in a haze. Jolting awake, I pressed against his chest. "You didn't wear one." Liang Yanqing pinched my earlobe. "Spoiled." "I forgot. If it happens, just have it. Are you afraid I can't support you?" As he spoke, a tenderness flickered in his eyes, as if he truly held expectations for the future. How could I? I pushed him away and leaned over to find the medicine. How could I have it? We won't last long. What would a child mean? Liang Yanqing's face darkened. It was as if he deliberately wanted to oppose me. He grabbed my hand, fished out the pills one by one, and flushed them down the toilet. Ran, if I find out you're taking those pills, you're done for." My heart stirred, a fleeting daze, but in an instant, I was cold and clear-headed. Avoiding Liang Yanqing, I ended up taking the pills anyway. When I woke from the dream, it was utterly silent. Liang Yanqing hadn't come back. My phone vibrated with an incoming call. I answered. My mother was on her usual rant again. "I can't sleep just thinking about you." She didn't know about me and Liang Yanqing. In her eyes, I was already at an age where I was almost too old to get married. If you don't find someone now, in a few more years, even blind dates won't work in your favor. Your Aunt Zhang's son is in the capital. Meeting him for a while won't cost you a pound of flesh. Back in high school, she was afraid I'd fall in love early and would cut my hair in a mess. Now she's afraid I won't get married and wishes she could sell me online. "I sei den Kotz her offentlig." I'll go. Just a meet and greet, that's all. "After we meet," she paused. "What did you say?" I repeated. I said I'll go. I need a trigger. A trigger to leave Liang Yanqing for good. Liang Yanqing left the office late. As the car started, he remembered what happened that afternoon. He had promised to go back and properly comfort her, but Chen-Li organized a gathering and called him 80 times to come. Well, it wouldn't hurt to delay a little longer. Liang Yanqing smiled indifferently and drove towards a club. When he arrived, Chun-Li grabbed his shoulder and looked behind him. "Oh, how rare your wife didn't follow you tonight. That little bunny has no other tricks, just loves to follow people, and then stares at Liang Yanxing with those eyes. And he happens to fall for it. He lets her attend every gathering, not caring about losing face." Liang Yanxing handed his coat to the waiter. "Today she saw Zhao Tian, and now she's throwing a tantrum at me." Chun-Li clicked his tongue. "I thought it was something big, but you've gone too far. Why would you rub it in her face like that? You know she can't stand your flings, yet you still provoke her. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. Aren't you afraid of pushing her too far? That bunny might just jump over the wall and leave."
Liang Yanxing lit a cigarette.
"A woman without any temper isn't fun. Let her sulk for a couple of days." Chun-Li slapped his forehead. "The day after tomorrow is my birthday. Given your situation, are you two coming or not?" Someone laughed. "There are still 2 days left. Based on past experience, I reckon she'll come to make up tonight." Liang Yanxing said lazily, "I'm fine with anything. As for her, you figure it out yourself." "That's a sure thing. Give me Song Rant's number," Chun-Li said as he took out his phone. "You're usually scared to death when I mention breaking up. I'll bluff you. Say that if you dare not come, I'll have my brother break up with you." While the phone was dialing, Liang Yanli reminded him, "Don't scare her too much. She's timid." Chun-Li said hello. After a long while, a strange voice answered on the other end. He stood frozen in place. He asked Liang Yanli uncertainly, "This number is right, isn't it? Why is it in the middle of the night that a man answers the phone?" Liang Yanli's gaze shifted over. Through the hazy smoke, he narrowed his eyes. "When I woke up, my hand was being tightly held by someone. I moved slightly, but it was gripped tighter. I turned my head to look, and only then did Liang Yanli open his eyes and let go. He flexed his fingers and rolled his wrist, glanced at my condition, then asked with a dark expression, 'Taking so many sleeping pills, do you have a death wish?'
Who taught you?
Now you've learned to threaten people with suicide." Only then did I remember, after receiving my mom's call, I couldn't sleep, so I thought of taking some medicine to help, but my head became terribly dizzy. I accidentally took a few too many. When I realized something was wrong, I pressed the emergency call button in the villa, and the butler must have come promptly. Liang Yanli's face was full of exhaustion and anger. There was also a faint trace of lingering fear, which I found somewhat amusing. How could he think I would use suicide to threaten him? I didn't explain, just went along with his words and asked, "Can't you just have me alone?" As the words left my mouth, I realized my voice was choked. "Love me the way I love you. Is that so hard?" I asked, not giving up. I thought I'd give him one last chance, even to the point of having no bottom line. As long as he agreed, I could overlook everything, just pretend nothing happened. I pitted myself, even despised myself, but what could I do? Some people are unavoidable, destined to be a calamity. For the last time, "Okay," I said, my voice low, tears splashing onto the back of my hand. "Don't go looking for them anymore." Liang Yanxing looked at me in silence, not speaking for a long while. In the days that followed, I often thought of this moment, of him watching me with a face full of tears, his eyes dark and unfathomable. Did he ever waver, even for a moment? But in the end, he just sighed and reasoned with me. Ran, did I ever promise you anything?" He frowned, trying to recall, like he was looking at a child asking for candy. I was stunned, my hands clenched. He shook his head. "Love, marriage, fidelity. I never promised you any of that. We ended up here because we both wanted it. I'll say it again. If you can't take it, let's part amicably." He stood up, the bottle of sleeping pills from the bedside table stuffed into his coat pocket. "Get some rest." He reached out and tucked the blanket around me. "The day after tomorrow is Chun-Li's birthday. I've prepared a gift for you. Call me when you've made up your mind, and I'll pick you up." I should have known. A scumbag like Liang Yanxing. Utterly selfish. As long as I have no boundaries, the moment I take a step back, he'll take 100 forward. It was like that before, and it's still like that now. I must have taken too many sleeping pills to say something like that. A heartless person can't be warmed up. I picked up my phone, opened the email interface, froze for a few seconds, and sent the confirmation. On Chun-Li's birthday, I didn't show up and Liang Yanxing didn't contact me either. Instead, Chun-Li called me late at night. "Song Ran, you're really unreliable. If you're fighting, just fight. How could you not come to my birthday party? He must have had a lot to drink, slurring his words. Stop making a scene. You're putting on too many airs. Are you really going to break up? I'm telling you, you bookworm. Can you really bear to? Don't come crying to me later asking me to get in touch with him. You know what kind of person he is. If it weren't for your obedience and good sense, don't you think, out of all those women, why has only you lasted 5 years? I was still working overtime. I twitched the corner of my mouth and casually said, "Happy birthday," then hung up. The next day, I sat in the cafe, the man across from me talking nonstop, and I gave him a quick once-over. His looks were decent enough, clean-cut, handsome, with fair skin. I heard you earn about 10 to 20,000 a month now, but private companies like yours aren't as stable as a government job in our system. I took a sip of my coffee. To be precise, it's 22,154 yuan after tax, not including quarterly bonuses. But Liang Yanqing always said this job of mine was a joke. A month's salary wasn't enough for one of his meals. I didn't speak. The man across from me continued. Still, your job probably requires a lot of overtime, right? After we're married, someone has to take care of the household. Have you considered switching jobs? I set down my cup and said flatly, "You don't mind if our future kids take my surname, do you? I'm an only child. My family's lineage can't end here." He looked stunned. Your mom never brought that up. Besides, I'm an only son too. How about we have two? I suddenly felt how absurd this was. If Liang Yanqing saw this scene, he'd definitely mock me, saying that after leaving him, I only picked up trash. I rushed off to work overtime, but the blind date tried to stop me. I really like you. Matters about children can be dealt with slowly later. I looked at him again and found his face had turned somewhat fierce and unpleasant. Having messed up the blind date, my mom bombarded me with a call the next second. What were you thinking? Why did you bring up children out of nowhere? When did I ever ask that your children take our family surname? I didn't have time to placate her. I said a few words casually and hung up. I didn't even have time to sort out my messy feelings. Before I knew it, I rushed off on my business trip without a moment's rest. When I returned from the trip, I stood at the door carrying my suitcase, but no matter how I entered the password, it was wrong. I thought I had forgotten it until it warned that it would lock if I tried again. Then I gave up. Liang Yanqing had changed the password. If nothing unexpected had happened, I should have been blocked by him by now. Sure enough, my messages were rejected. I couldn't reach him. It wasn't that he had never blocked me before. The time we fought the worst, I refused to bow my head, and he just deleted all my contact information. Later, I regretted it and tried every way to contact him, even getting several new SIM cards. In the end, Chun-Li couldn't stand it and took me to see him. Liang Yanqing probably thought that this time I would still shamelessly go to him like before. I picked up my suitcase, took a step back, and looked up at the house in front of me. In the years I've been with Liang Yanqing, I've never been above accepting his gifts. I took everything he gave me. The clothes, shoes, and bags I didn't need I would convert into cash each year. Liang Yanqing knew about it, but he didn't care about such small amounts. For my convenience getting to work, he bought me 2 apartments and initially lived with me for a while. I carefully decorated every corner of the apartment to make him comfortable, but he wasn't used to such residential suites, so I followed him into this villa. Here, most of our time is still memorable. The year I broke my foot, he personally took care of me for half a year. Someone who seemed untouchable learned to make soup, did physiotherapy for me at fixed times every day, and his rehabilitation techniques were even better than the doctor's. He was afraid I'd get bored, so he carried me up and down the stairs, took me to the yard to sunbathe, and to the backyard to see the swans. I held the handle, turned around, and walked out. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Chun-Li again. Can't get in, right? He is more sober today than last time. I didn't expect he found out about you meeting your blind date. You're quite resourceful. Last time it was suicide. This time it's finding a man. He smiled. I thought you were a bit clueless. His tone changed, but sis, I'm not one to stir trouble. There are plenty of good men. Why hang yourself on one tree? You saw the photo too, right? To make you soften up, he even had a female college student sit next to him. I really don't like stirring trouble. Now he can have someone sit beside him. Next thing you know, he'll have her on his lap. Chun-Li has always been this erratic since I've known him. Sometimes he takes Liang Yanqing's side and throws all sorts of sarcasm at me. but other times, he indirectly badmouths Liang Yanxing in front of me. However, what he said this time is indeed quite accurate. So I politely replied, "You're right." Without waiting for his response, I hung up and returned to the company. I didn't lift my head all morning. I have a big project on hand, nearing the final stage of signing the contract. I didn't dare to stop for a moment. Before meeting the client, I downed 2 whole cans of iced coffee to keep my all-nighter addled mind sharper. Their company was in the city center. When we arrived, someone was already waiting. From the proposal presentation to the discussion, everything went smoothly. The one who made the final decision and signed the contract was a young man, also their boss, named Zhao Qua. I glanced at him. There was something strangely familiar about his demeanor. It wasn't until I saw Liang Yanxing push the door open that it hit me. That trust fund brat vibe he had was indeed from their circle. Zhao Qua ran his company very casually. During the client meeting, outsiders like Liang Yanxing could come and go freely. The two exchanged greetings. From start to finish, Liang Yanxing didn't spare me a single glance. He carried an innate arrogance, even through all those years of debauchery. In his eyes, that too was merely an exercise of power. Beneath power, all are but ants. Everyone should submit and obey. But now, looking at me with such resentful eyes, questioning me, it was rare for me to see him lose his composure. "Liang Yanxing, do you want me to go back to Beijing with you?" I asked him outright. He pressed his lips together and said nothing. See, even when he regrets and tries to hold me back, he still has to be superior, unwilling to utter a single plea for me to come back. I shook my head. "Even if I do go back, it has nothing to do with you. I won't gamble my marriage on you. Gambling that you'll change. Breaking up is one thing, but divorce is a much messier affair." He countered. "What if I can do better?" I raised an eyebrow, leaving everything unsaid. After that day, Liang Yanxing didn't leave. He casually bought a furnished apartment near my place and showed up at our family's noodle shop whenever he had free time. Sometimes he would run into Chengyu. Chengyu wasn't as brazen as he was. After a few encounters, he gradually stopped coming. On the day Chengyu returned to the US, I treated him to a meal. He drank a lot, staring at me the whole time. If I had come earlier or later, either would have been fine. But it just had to be now. Yeah, it just had to be now. When I hadn't let go completely, when I was struggling to climb out of a pit, only self-rescue could save me. I raised my glass. "Till we meet again." Liang Yanxing has always been eloquent. Seeing that I remained indifferent these past days, he turned to working on my mother's mind. A person born into luxury and privilege also learned to serve dishes, calculate bills, and keep accounts. The small restaurant had troublesome customers. Several times I saw him furrow his brow, wanting to lose his temper, but forcibly holding it in, his tall frame squeezed into the small noodle shop, impossible to drive away. Under such an offensive, my mother grew more and more wavering. Suddenly one day, she urged me, "Should you reconcile with Liang Yanxing?" My hands paused in their motion, and I said calmly, "Mom, he cheated on me. You know that. But hasn't he already admitted his mistake? Look at him these days. He's a rich family's young master, humbling himself to do those menial chores, begging for your forgiveness. What's a little cheating? He admitted his fault. He knows he was wrong. Isn't it enough if he doesn't do it again? Besides, which man in this world doesn't cheat? If he doesn't before marriage, he will after. Even your father, an honest man like that, still cheated. No matter what kind of man you find, they'll all cheat. If you ask me, you should find someone wealthy and powerful. If he cheats, you'll still get a lot of money. Much better than settling for some ordinary guy." I asked her calmly. "And then, get married just like you begged my dad back when I was little. Didn't you know? I followed your example. I learned from you and groveled to a man, so over the years I kept crawling back to him. I forgave him over and over, but he still cheated again and again. Mom, is this what you wanted? Me marrying a disloyal man, giving birth to a child no one wants, and being gossiped about my whole life. My dad cheated when I was 6. Back then, as a little kid, I watched my mom forgive him time after time. If he hadn't been hit by a car on his way to see his mistress, she'd probably still be forgiving him over and over. I never used to say these things to her face, but now I stab her with them without hesitation. After I said it, I wiped my tears.
I'm sorry, Mom.
She clutched her apron, glanced at me, and then turned and walked into the bedroom. At night, my bedroom door opened. A pair of calloused hands touched my face, and I heard her quietly sobbing. "I'm sorry, Ran. Mom shouldn't have said that during the day." I didn't reply. In the darkness, tears seeped into the pillow. Mother-daughter relationships in this world are like vines and a big tree, dependence, entanglement, symbiosis, mixed with the most extreme love and expectations, also carrying subtle hatred and disgust. Often, like an untiable knot, silently draining each other. But more often, after speaking recklessly, they regret the momentary sting deeply. The next day, I heard my mom drove Liang Yanqing out with a broom and forbade him from coming to the noodle shop again. I didn't care. I lowered my head and looked at the acceptance letter on the computer. Actually, since the day I prepared to leave Beijing, I had made 2 preparations. My mom doesn't lack money, plus with my savings over the years, theoretically, even if I don't work and just lie down, I have more money than I can spend in this lifetime. These years, not giving up work, more often, I just want to keep myself more clear-headed. Back when I had just graduated from college, Liang Yanqing suggested that I simply not go out to work, saying, "How much can you earn in a day?
If you want something, just say it.
There's no need to go out and work for someone else. Your daily allowance alone could cover several months of your salary." Though his tone was consultative, it wasn't exactly gentle, because what he wanted was a companion who answered his every call, a partner who centered her whole world on him. If I couldn't manage that, he had plenty of other options. But back then, I didn't know why, yet I was determined to have my own job. So I leaned in and kissed him, softly pleading, "Please?" He couldn't resist, letting me kiss him several times before reluctantly agreeing. At that time, my first month's salary was just over 9,000. I scrimped and saved for most of a year to buy him a cufflink. When he picked it up, I nervously hid one hand behind my back and stood on tiptoe, pointing at the box. "It's my own money, not a single cent of yours." He probably had never used such cheap cufflinks and couldn't bring himself to praise them. He just smiled casually and said, "Oh, how obedient of you to even buy me a gift." I shook my head, then reached out and typed a few words on a social platform. "Is 26 too late for a woman to study abroad?" A bunch of consulting agencies and promotions popped up on the page. I clicked into a post, and the first thing I saw was a comment. "I'm in the US now. What if I told you that my classmate is 75 years old this year? There's no moment younger than today." I chuckled silently to myself. I knew I had actually made the decision earlier than anyone else, and all this seeking outward was just another way of seeking confirmation. A few days later, my mom said Liang Yanqing had to go back to Beijing unexpectedly. I told her about my plan to go abroad. She immediately objected. "Have you gone stupid from studying? You're already 26 or 27, and you still want to study. Your most important task now is to get married. This is the prime age for marriage, and you're still going to study? You've read too many books. Your brain has turned to mush." I knew she couldn't accept it right away. But ever since she sent me to Beijing to study, she should have realized that my world would be vast. Society is too harsh on age. So harsh that as soon as you graduate, you need a perfect job, and as soon as you start working, you need the perfect partner. As soon as you get married, you'd better have a son and a daughter. Everyone is disciplined into believing that life must proceed on a strict beat. My mother was the worst of all. She laid down the law. "If you dare to go abroad, don't ever come back. I'll consider you dead to me." She had controlled me my whole life, and now that I was slipping out of her grasp, she was panicking. I didn't change my mind. In the days that followed, my mother and I didn't exchange a single word. On the day I left the country, I hadn't planned to say goodbye. I just wanted to quietly drag my suitcase out the door. But when I looked down, I saw my handbag stuffed full. There were also stacks of bills tightly bound with rubber bands. From home to the nearest bank that could exchange foreign currency was over 10 kilometers. I clutched that money in my hand. I glanced at the tightly shut bedroom door, my eyes burning. That year, I was 18. The plane disappeared into the clouds. At 30,000 feet, my life set off anew. I settled in a foreign country, learning to adapt to the time difference and the accents. No tangled past to haunt me. Even the air felt foreign. I hadn't had much peace. Liang Yanqing got word of me and showed up like a persistent ghost at the entrance to my apartment building. He was far too familiar. His attitude was so open, as if there were no barriers between us. If you had said earlier you wanted to study abroad, I would have sent you off right after graduation. Why go through all that trouble? He glanced around my small apartment, a hint of disapproval in his eyes. I have a place there, close to your school. You can move in. There are 2 housekeepers to take care of you. I kept my head down, packing my things, not answering him. With someone like Liang Yansheng, the more you push him away, the more he'll press forward. Many times I'd curse and cry at him, venting all my anger, but he only found it amusing. Occasionally, when in a good mood, he'd coax me a little, but most of the time, I was the one who backed down. I stopped deliberately pushing him away, just quietly watched as he lingered around me. He acted as if it were only natural for him to be my other half, chasing away any men who showed interest in me. He looked down on them, pointing and sneering. They're not even the same species as us. How could you fancy them? Foreign men are like this, seeming passionate on the surface, but with no sense of boundaries, all brawn and heavy body odor. How dare he come near you? My coursework was overwhelmingly heavy, and his idle meddling actually saved me a lot of trouble. White people food was unexpectedly hard to swallow. Even though I didn't live in his house, I gradually stopped resisting Liang Yanqing's 2 aunties. They had come from China and were skilled at making all sorts of cuisines. Every day, I went to class and came back just waiting for that mouthful of food to keep me alive. Over the course of a year, Liang Yansheng frequently traveled between home and abroad. Sometimes he would stay here for a few days, but in the middle of the night, he'd have to fly back for an early morning meeting. I heard from Chun Li that when Liang Yansheng was back in China, someone asked him why he traveled abroad so often. He said, "Oh," with a hint of showing off, "my girlfriend is studying abroad. I'm accompanying her," Chun Li said over an international call, frustrated. You, I'm really done with you. How did you 2 get back together again? You're such a hopeless romantic. He started to say something but held back. You're studying abroad, with your head in the sand. Can you see what he's doing back in China? I folded a page in my book and asked calmly, "Did he find another woman again?" Chun Li fell silent for a moment, then hung up without saying anything. Of course, I knew what I was doing. I gave Liang Yansheng a sense of availability, just like before. Throughout this year, he started with an apologetic attitude, but gradually returned to his old ways. In his eyes, no matter how big this fight was, it was just an ordinary quarrel. I was still the obedient girl he could easily manipulate, who would always make up after a fight. Liang Yansheng and I remained entangled like this for a long time, until I was about to graduate. The day before Liang Yansheng returned to the country again, he seemed distracted, tapping his fingers on the table, lost in thought, as if making a difficult decision. I glanced at him, then looked away and continued reading. He curled his lips. "Wait for me to come back. I'll give you a surprise." Of course I knew what he was going to do, because I was also planning to give him a surprise. So, a week later, when Liang Yansheng flew overnight from his country to my place, the door behind me was wide open. In full view, there was also a bare-chested man with an impeccable physique and strikingly handsome mixed-race features. And my carefully chosen first time. Unless someone was an idiot, they could tell what had happened in that room the night before. Liang Yansheng crushed out his cigarette, looked at Shi Che and me from a distance, and suddenly let out a laugh. Before he could get angry, I patted Shi Che's face, signaling him to leave first.
Undicesimo che glanced at Liang Yansheng.
He raised an eyebrow. The tall and imposing figure started to act weak, looking fierce. No wonder you can't shake him off. I know the local Chinese mob. I covered Shi Che's mouth and shooed him away. Liang Yansheng is not someone to be trifled with. After Shi Che left, Liang Yansheng didn't walk toward me. I thought he would be furious, but he just stood with his back to me. Leaning one hand on the car door, he was silent for a long, long time. After a while, he turned around. I saw his eyes redden. He took a few steps, bent down in front of me, almost peering into my eyes. Song ran. He called my name, eyes red, teeth clenched. Do you know what I did during this week back home? I went back to the old house, confronted Grandma and my mother. I said I wanted to get married. I went to pick wedding dresses for you, had someone design the engagement ring overnight. Wasn't satisfied with the style. I revised it again and again. I told everyone, when I'm going to marry you, Song ran. What are you doing? Are you kissing and sleeping with another man? He was like a fool. When people asked him if he wasn't planning to get married in this life, how come he suddenly changed his mind? he said nonchalantly. What anti-marriage ideology? That's just because I hadn't met the right person. When Liang Yanqing said that, the whole room laughed. He originally thought he wasn't at the point where he couldn't live without her. But people are like objects. The longer you possess them, the harder it is to let go. He couldn't stand the way she smiled at other men. Chun Li was the only one who stopped him, but not for his sake. He said, "Don't go ruin that girl's life anymore." Liang Yanqing disagreed. "What are you talking about? Song Ran and I are made for each other. If she really could leave, she wouldn't still be by his side now." He thought Song Ran just lacked a sense of security. He would marry her, that would solve it. Over the past 2 years, she hadn't refused or pushed him away. He foolishly thought that meant they had reconciled. But it turns out she was waiting for this moment. I pushed away Liang Yanqing's hand.
My heart was so calm, so calm.
Seeing his pain and tears, I no longer felt even a trace of sadness. I think at this moment I might finally be saved from all the past, but I don't remember. I said slowly, "What did I promise you? Love, marriage, fidelity? I never promised you anything. Liang Yanqing, after we broke up 2 years ago, we had nothing to do with each other, right?" Pain flooded his eyes. He clung to me desperately, unable to utter a single word of rebuttal. Does it hurt? It should hurt. Even so, this pain is nothing compared to what I felt back then, not even a tenth. I saw Zheng Xijia in the US. She took the money back then, went abroad to study right after graduation, and now she's a high-ranking executive at a foreign company. We had coffee that day, and she recalled the past, saying, "Actually, when Liang Yanqing looked at us, it was like looking at an object, but when he looked at you, it was different. You must have felt it at some moments too. In his heart, you were different." Before leaving, she patted my shoulder and said, "Still, I'm glad you overcame those moments." I said it before. Liang Yanqing is my calamity. As rotten as he is, he still has a deadly allure for me. Along this journey, I've been overcoming those moments all the time. Liang Yanqing, like a desperate adventurer, has tried every possible way. Consider what happened last night as a one-night stand. Forget it.
Forget that man.
I can pretend nothing happened. A one-night stand? I laughed mockingly at him. Don't you know me best? I'm famously a good girl. How could I ever do something like a one-night stand? I truly like him. Like his face, like his young and fit body. Isn't that liking? He said sharply. You can think of it as, I lifted my chin disdainfully. Do you think I'm you? Liang Yanqing lost his strength to hold my shoulders, but he still refused to let go. I know. Our past, his wild and unrestrained days and nights, are like the dullest knife, stabbing slowly into his most painful spot. I gently stepped back, pulling away the last bit of distance between us. What you can't let go of is control, is habit, not me. The wind brushed through my hair. My voice was soft, but every word was firm. Don't come looking for me again. After graduation, I started working in investments. With a keen eye, every deal made me a fortune. Although Liang Yanqing wasn't a good person, his insight and intellect were top-notch. In those years, when he had free time, he would personally teach me many things. After my career took off, my mom stopped urging me to go on blind dates. When neighbors asked, she would snap back, "Quit your nagging, you big-headed ghost. It's none of your business if my daughter never marries in her entire life." I didn't plan to never marry. Later, I saw the wedding dress Liang Yanqing had chosen for me. He really did know me well enough. The dress was beautiful, but I still didn't agree to him. He didn't believe it. "I can wait. Someday you'll want to wear it," he said, still with that same certainty and confidence. I smiled. Though he seemed certain on the surface, when he got drunk late at night, he would go to Chun-Li. He was truly helpless. No one could help him, so he had Chun-Li step in. "Can you talk to her for me? She used to be so obedient. Why is she being so disobedient this time?" Chun-Li clicked his tongue. If Song Ran had really listened to him, it wouldn't have been Liang Yanqing's turn. Later, many people advised me with plausible words, saying that although Liang Yanqing only had 2 or 3 parts of true feelings, he gave them all to you. I didn't quite agree. Wasn't I worthy of a man who would give me his whole heart? After a woman has capital, she can choose many things, including men. At 33, I got married to a man I had carefully chosen. The wedding was held at my home, and my mother was grinning from ear to ear. At the grand banquet, vows of eternal love rang out one after another. I don't believe in men, nor in their vows. The man I'm holding on to now, will he surely be loyal to me? I don't know, but I know that in my dictionary, there's not just endurance. If that day really comes, I will definitely kick him to the curb. The man beside me suddenly looked at me, as if sensing something. He widened his eyes with a hint of grievance. Honey, on such a wonderful day, what nonsense are you thinking about again? I smiled and squeezed his hand. On the wedding day, Chun-Li came, bringing a gift. He rubbed his nose, feeling a bit embarrassed to present it, thinking that giving such a thing at someone's wedding was nothing but bad luck. He invited Liang Yanqi to come along, but he refused, saying he couldn't bear to see Song Rand in a wedding dress chosen by someone else. I took a look. It was that diamond ring, worth a fortune. Amid the noisy wedding feast, I faintly heard the sound of a car leaving. I turned to look back, the red curtains fluttering, seeing guests come and go. Thus farewell to the twilight of my 19th year, those extreme years and entanglements dissipating like a gentle breeze, leaving no trace. From then on, love and hate turned a new page, and the road ahead lay wide open.